Hi, everyone. Welcome to Spill the Tea Radio, where we interview awesome singers, songwriters, and those who influence their lives. Spill the Tea Radio explores the journey, creativity, and inspiration behind the songs. My next guest is a multi-instrumental musician and music producer in Edmonton, Alberta. Originally hailing from Yellowknife, Northwest Territories, he began playing music when he was 4 years old. It became his single focus before moving to Alberta to study music at MacEwan University. He then began developing the project that would eventually become Ways in Waves. So, let's spill the tea with Raine. Brian, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you. Lots to discuss with you. You've got some interesting things about you, notwithstanding the special guitar that you play, the fact that you have a 6-octave range, which we are not going to test this morning because it's
Please
a little
no.
early for a 6-octave range this morning. But the first thing, I normally wait till we get to the song to talk about this, but I need to ask you the question. The song that we are going to feature today is called Ovum Nova.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when we look at those definitions of those words separately, ovum has to do with birth and babies, and nova has to do with a star that bursts into a highlight and then returns to its natural state. So how do you put the two of those together to come up with the name of a song?
That's a really good question. I think when you think about those two things and, all the ideas that these two very different words, all the images that sort of come to mind with them, you can think of something that's very the most personal thing is an ovum, literally personal, and then a nova maybe being the opposite of that. And I think with the subject matter of the song being sort of intentionally obfuscated, and it's kind of like I'm dancing around the point the entire time with the lyrics. I think that what I wanted to do was highlight how the personal could just become completely abstracted, either through the process of grief or through the process of avoiding dealing with grief, and how it can become this almost unimaginably vast and incomprehensible thing sometimes. To have the most personal parts of ourselves sort of extrapolated and pulled apart and expanded and sort of pushed so far into the distance that you can't make sense of them anymore, I think was sort of the idea behind it, broadly.
You have a special guitar that you use. I'm not sure if it's the one sitting right beside you there,
It
but
just so
it
happens
just
that it
so
is.
happens. Wow, it's almost like we were planning this. Tell us
Yeah.
about that guitar, because that is a very unique instrument.
Sure. It occurs to me that I should have tuned it beforehand, but that's okay. So, this is it's technically a Telecaster, and I say that because it has Telecaster pickups. It's a guitar that I commissioned from my friend Eric Wildman. Eric was for several years one of the guitarists in my band Ways and Waves, but also like he moved to BC in the past year and a half, and so he's not playing with me anymore just because it's a bit too much of a drive to to play like
Little bit.
with my band all the time. But he still occasionally plays with the band that he co-founded called Carter and the Capitals, which is still here in Edmonton. They're this wonderful funk, pop, soul group. So Eric was a guitarist the year below me at MacEwan, so just started 1 year after me. And we both had an interest in extended range instruments. I think was maybe one of our first conversations was I had my 8-string guitar, he had a 7-string guitar. And so we were talking about these sorts of things. And I played 8 strings for a while, but toward the end of my music degree, I became really interested in alternate tunings that weren't necessarily open tunings. And I think you could make a theoretical argument that this is still an open tuning, but I prefer to think of it as a symmetrical tuning. What's so wonderful about this tuning is, yes, it's quite difficult to play 2 notes that are very close together. It's very easy to play notes that are very far apart. And when building this instrument, Eric was sort of asking me like, okay, what kind of neck do you want? Because my other main guitar is a PRS. It's a custom 24. It has a very, almost like a shredder kind of neck. It's very thin. It's very easy to get around. And that guitar just feels like butter to play. It's amazing. And I didn't want that for this. Because if this guitar had a really thin neck, then suddenly I'd find myself with this really interesting tuning, playing lots of notes all the time, and just like not shutting up. And I think that what I opted for instead was more of a C kind of baseball. It's not quite a baseball neck, but it's like a C-shaped neck. It's a very like old school kind of Gibson type neck. And I think this feels like a more intuitive tool for that kind of ethos.
Well, let's get into one of the songs that Brian wrote. This song began as a fake song from a fake band called Ptarmigans, who produced a fake album called Ghost Ship. The only real thing is the bird that the band was named after. And before you rush off to Google it, a ptarmigan is a northern grouse which lives in mountainous and Arctic regions, which, given Brian's birth roots of northern Canada, certainly makes sense. So let's take a listen to singer-songwriter Brian Raine and his song, Ovum Nova.
Sporting event, no more space for the men, taking lessons from Jen. Oh, now ahead, in a state of unrest, leaning hard on the fence, I'm only willing in jest. like a sporting event. No more space for the men. Taking lessons from jams. Open overhead. In a state of unrest. Hanging hard on the fence. I'm only willing in jest.
That was Ovum Nova by Brian Raine. Brian, we talked a little bit about Ovum Nova and the name of the song at the very beginning. And anyone that's listened to the interview and then hears this song is going to wonder, is that really Brian singing? Because there's a fair bit of, I'm going to say punk influence there. And you can straighten it out during your description of the inspiration to this song. But let's talk about that. What was the inspiration for this song?
Yeah, so it wasn't originally a Ways and Waves song. Originally, it was for a project with, again, my YouTuber friend, Polyphonic. I know him as Noah. And Noah, in his spare time, I mean, he's just an incredibly prolific visual artist. If you check out his YouTube channel, Polyphonic, you'll see this immediately. I mean, just about anybody can, sit in front of a microphone and, and analyze an album, right? I mean, like, there is a lot of skill in writing, prolifically about these sorts of things and having something interesting to say. So I'm not saying that that's not a skill in and of itself, because it truly is. But not only is Noah well-spoken and able to form his thoughts in a coherent, entertaining, and interesting way, he also is able to express those thoughts via these, I describe them as storybook visuals. And he's so prolific that he needs to, in his spare time, get his extra visual creativity out there. And he does that by creating album covers for bands that don't exist. Yeah. And so he showed me a bunch of these, and we had this idea of, okay, we're going to start this project, which has yet to begin. So I'm almost hesitant to say too much about it, but it involves making music for all these bands that do not exist. And one of these album covers really struck me. It was similar to, just in terms of the layout of it, not in terms of the aesthetics of it. It was similar to one of my favorite EPs of all time by this weird punk band, post-punk, I don't know what you'd call them, The Fall of Troy, and it's their album Phantom on the Horizon. And it has this, this ghost ship in the distance, and it's very small. And then this just like immediately made me think of, okay, right, that album that I listened to 1,000 times, with this guitar work that makes no sense, and this man screaming so loud, and it's beautiful. I love that album so much. But it's really off the wall. And so immediately that was like my first association with seeing this. So I was trying to make a 60-second sample of this song from this band that doesn't exist. And then I was also thinking of this Japanese band, Boris, where there's 3 of them in it, and there's 2 lead singers. There's a male and a female lead singer. And they trade off instruments sometimes. Sometimes one plays bass, the other plays guitar. Sometimes one's singing, sometimes they're both singing. It's this very kind of open format for the band. And they have a lot of songs that have influenced me, but I think just that as an idea, I thought, okay, what if I wrote something with sort of the aggression of The Fall of Troy that has the format of Boris, with a male singer and a female singer. And, I do have a falsetto and that sort of thing, but what I did with this one was I played around with singing down an octave and then tuning it up and shifting what you would call the formant. You can think of that more as like the vowel sound of things to make things sound like they're more sort of forward in your voice or sort of in their voice. So if you're talking or singing like this is a low formant, and then if you're talking or singing like this is a very high formant, and it almost shifts the position of the sound as like forward in your face to back in your throat. And so when you play around with that while tuning it, you can like fairly accurately. Like, it still sounds a bit weird, a bit manipulated, but I kind of like that. Fairly accurately, like, shift your voice to the opposite gender if you want. And it's really fun to experiment with that. And so that's primarily what I did was I thought of, okay, I'm going to be able to distinguish like between these two separate vocal moods within this one song. Kept thinking like, nah, I can't keep this to 60 seconds. I need to expand upon this, and I want to play this live. And so now it's a Ways and Waves song.
Well, we certainly look forward to hearing what the reaction is when it finally comes out and you do play it in front of live audiences. And can't wait to see and hear the next projects that you're working on. It certainly sound very interesting. How do people find out more about you, your gigs, your tours, your concerts, and your music, Brian? Where should they go? What's the website, streaming services, and the socials?
Sure, yeah. So website is waysandwaves.com. You can find me on social media or Ways and Waves. So it's pretty easy. It's just at Ways in Waves. And that's on Instagram and YouTube and Facebook, though primarily active also on TikTok.
We have been in conversation with Brian Raine. Brian, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you.